unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
What is up, everybody? This is Hater Radio. My name is Chris McLean. I'm here with my co-host again, Ian Gibson. How are you?
I'm doing good. Very busy weekend.
Yeah, it was huge slate of games over like 5 days, Thursday to Monday. Was it 1, 2, 3? Yeah, it is 5 days. So wow, it's just a ton of action all around. You know, we had the start of North Dakota State, Colorado, and then we finished up with Boston College, Florida State last night. So a lot to talk about. So we'll get into it real quick. But today is a very extended show because normally how the show operates is like the banner says above, every Wednesday and Sunday. And Wednesday, we do the preview game of the games coming up for the weekend. And then Sunday, we do the recap. Well, only for this weekend, because of how the games are on Sunday and Monday, I've decided I'm not going to do a show in that time frame and just push it into the Wednesday and make the Wednesday of that week a larger show. And it'll just be the first week every year, but like it only happens that 1 week. And then the rest of the weeks are normal weeks of Wednesday and Sunday. So like I said, Wednesday and Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. That's where the show will be on all the formats. Okay, so let's get into it. We're going to do the week 1 recap first, and then we'll get into the preview afterwards, much like our old show. We actually used to do it like that in the olden days, but we've changed it up as of recently. So, okay, week 1, like I mentioned, North Dakota State and Colorado. I actually came out of this game really impressed with North Dakota State. I know we've talked about it before about how, this team is well coached and, they get the most out of their talent. And, there's been a lot of players that have gone on to the NFL from North Dakota State. So there is talent there and they proved it. I mean, they could move the ball pretty consistently all game long. They stalled on some of their drives, which if they didn't, they might have had an even better chance of winning this game. And which is crazy because they were ahead at halftime and Colorado needed, Colorado, honestly, outside of their like big, huge chunk plays, which they got several, I think they got like at least like 5 or 6, like 20 plus or more, maybe even more than that. They were able to move the ball because of that, but besides that, didn't seem like they were actually doing that well when it was, short yardage downs. They were not able to get, they're not able to move the North Dakota State defenders off the line and get the short yardage that they needed. Hunter obviously had a great game, 3 TDs. The kid's a stud. I'm not going to deny it. I'm not even a hater of Colorado. I think, and I've said this before, I just don't like the media attention that they get. And it's very over the top and annoying. Like them themselves, I honestly don't have a problem with. If they were just any other team, I wouldn't even care. But the way that the media fawns all over them is disturbing, considering that they were a 4-8 team last year and they look like a 4-8 team this year. They don't look any better than they were last year. They look like the exact same team. Jimmy Horn Jr. from USF transferred over. He looked great, and I'm glad that he's doing well. But the team outside of Hunter, Sanders, Shedeur Sanders, and Jimmy Horn, like that's it. I don't see anything else on this team that's that amazing. The defense is not good. They couldn't stop an FCS team. Granted, a power FCS team, but still, it just was not conducive for a team that's going to win 8-9 games, which the media seems to think that this team is. Last year, they were talking about playoff possibilities with Colorado. They were 4-8, and they were talking about playoff possibilities. it boggles my brain that people actually buy into this stuff. And I know it gets clicks and gets, sells ad space on articles, and more power to them. They're realizing there's a market for it because they're kind of like making Colorado the villain. And so, like, not only is it people are watching to watch Colorado, they're watching to watch to see if they lose. So there's a lot of hate watching now going on. um you know i I was trying to be as objective as I could in that game, and I really was. I still thought they were going to win the game, and they did, but it was close. North Dakota State had the ball with 9 seconds left and a chance, or 5 seconds left and a chance to throw it into the end zone, and the guy caught it at like the 3 or 4 yard line. So like they weren't that far off from actually beating them. Your thoughts, Ian?
Yeah, I agree with you. I said I don't know who I was talking to in the game, but I remember saying, if you take Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders out of this team, they are losing by double digits right now.
Yeah.
And we've seen that happen last year as well. But one thing I was hoping to see from this Colorado team was, improve. Like, it couldn't just be two people to carry this team. If they do that again, it's going to be the same story as it was last year. They need to be more consistent on defense, and they need to have more weapons on offense that they can rely on. And I'm not saying like Jimmy Horn Jr., we know it firsthand, excellent player. That is a fantastic addition. But when I was looking at it, I think they only relied on and I know they're a bit pass heavy, but I think they only had like 26 total yards and total rushing. They're very one-dimensional is the point I'm making. And that's fine against North Dakota State, where you can get by on that. And that's what I was saying. They won this game based on talent and talent alone. If you can out-athlete them and win that game, all right to you, but I'm not sure how well that's going to go throughout down the road. They were, I would say they had the better players, but I don't think they necessarily the team didn't play as good as they should. They did get the win. And it didn't come easy. I did know going in, I wasn't surprised by the score because I knew North Dakota State was not going to lay down for them. I was just hoping to see more from Colorado besides Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter, and not taking anything away from him. Travis Hunter had one of the best games I've ever seen out of a wide receiver. And he's not even wasn't even recruited as a wide receiver. But all in all, sentiments exactly the same as you. There's still a lot of work to be done if they are going to legitimately be considered chance for not even playoff you got to, go to a bowl game, man, before we can really talk about that.
Yeah. I mean, like, yeah, it was rushing yards. It was 59 for Colorado.
Okay.
And North Dakota State had 157. So like, if you're getting pushed around by an FCS team, just wait for a team like Utah, a team like Nebraska, a team like Oklahoma State. Just there's a lot of teams that they're going to end up playing that are really big offensive lines, way bigger than North Dakota State's, and they're going to maul them. And I don't know. It's because obviously they're going to blow everything out of proportion, the media. And so like Shedeur Sanders throwing 445 yards is a huge number, but literally they did nothing else. And they had to throw the ball the whole time. And, they were doing it against an FCS team. So how impressive is it really when he goes up against like better defenses, like a Utah defense? Like, he's not going to be able to throw that ball that much, and I don't expect this team to win more than 5 games. And that's the ceiling for them. It's just the reality of it. And like you said, they're going to struggle to try to get bowl eligibility. And it's like to blow this team out of proportion like they've done, it is, I don't know, it's just disconcerting because it's like, it's not, I don't know, they're not like, based in reality with how they're judging these teams. So it's not enjoyable as someone like ourselves who are, we digest all this media to get an understanding of the sport, and they're the like gatekeepers of the information and like how things are done, and yet they're not holding up their end of the bargain as truthful storytellers. And so it's just, I don't know, it is what it is. Let's move on, because I don't know. We'll talk about Colorado and the Nebraska matchup in the look ahead, but let's move on to Oklahoma Temple. I saw the score as I was doing stuff on Friday, and I didn't pay attention to the details until I saw the highlights this morning, getting ready for the show prep. And dude, Jackson Arnold, like, he only had like a limited amount of passes and like didn't have that much yardage, but he had 4 really nice TD passes, and that is a huge like green flag, because it's like they obviously didn't try to throw the ball a ton because they knew they were going to beat Temple, and they ran for 220 yards. So they clearly were able to run the ball, and that was a success. But I think Jackson Arnold being able to be as effective as he was in the red zone as a passer is huge for them, because that means that they are going to be very capable going up against better teams when they're in the red zone. And that's huge. Like, being able to score in the red zone, not just, score, but score touchdowns, it's huge for being able to beat bigger and better teams, which they're going to play. And, being in the SEC now. So, but it's a nice test for them to get a win like this. Temple is, obviously downtrodden and just not very good. I think they were 3-9 the last 3 years or something like that. And so they've just been really terrible. But outside that, the defense looked really good. They forced a lot of turnovers. They were, solid in their tackling. They only allowed Temple to score 3. They win 51-3. It's interesting because they're coming into the SEC. How are they going to end up doing? I don't know. I'm still kind of up in the air about them. I'm more up in the air about them than Texas. I feel like Texas will do strong, but like Oklahoma, it's tough because they got a young quarterback who's going to go up against some really tough teams. But it's a good start winning 51-3. But what are your thoughts, Ian?
Yeah, I thought the same thing when I was watching this game. It was one of the things that was very encouraging to see is actually the running game of Oklahoma. They had a couple guys they could hand the ball off to and get really big jump plays out of. And that just made it so much easier for Jackson Arnold. Arnold, I know when we did the season preview, I did highly praise him. And if they wanted to open the book up with him, they absolutely could have. But it does make it so much easier when you can just run the ball, get in the red zone. Then you can run like a play action boot. And then you can just have your tight end, over the top, which is what they did. So Arnold, we know how good he can be passing, but having the running game is going to be very big this year. If Oklahoma can get that running game going, they could be a problem offensively and defensively. Oklahoma, showed out. They did a good job stopping Temple. But other than that, it's we kind of knew going into this game what the expectation was going to be in Oklahoma. Checked all the boxes. Very good game on both sides, but you can also now kind of tell they weren't going to throw the kitchen sink at this one.
Yeah, it definitely was, a limited playbook here, and they did well by, not showcasing Arnold because they didn't have to. They didn't put him in harm's way. They let him show out without having to put too much effort in there. Okay, so let's move on to Saturday's games. Clemson, Georgia in Atlanta. The game was 6-0 at halftime, and Clemson's defense was strong, and they were making stops and forcing Georgia into settling for field goals. But second half, Georgia just wore them down, and Cade Klubnik is just not the answer for Clemson. He's just really not. I mean, it's amazing that they went from Deshaun Watson to then Kelly Bryant, and then who's not that great, but then to Trevor Lawrence, and then now they've just been adrift with the DJ Ungalele. He came in and he struggled, and then Cade Klubnik comes in and replaces him, and just he's done like nothing. And this team has talent. There's a lot of really good players on it, but it's just I don't know what it is. It's just they don't have an identity on offense. They really don't. They struggle to do a lot of things. Georgia just kept coming at them. They had long sustained drives. Carson Beck had 278 yards passing, no interceptions, 2 TDs. They ran the ball well, even without Trevor Etienne because he was suspended. It's not like their receivers had a ton of yardage. It was they had, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 receivers with a reception. That's amazing for a game where you're trying to figure out how your offensive attack is going to be, considering they, lost a few players last year from last year's team, and they looked really good. I hate saying that because I hate Georgia, but they're as good or maybe even better. But the saving grace for all of us, like non-Georgia fans who want to see them lose, is they're going to have a tough time. Their schedule is very difficult, and they're going to have to play the second best team in the SEC in the SEC championship game, which they could lose that game. And then also the playoffs now are not just, 2 wins and you win it. It's now maybe 3 or 4 games that you have to win. So there's a lot of chance for Georgia to lose, and so that's why I'm like, whatever. They're very good and they may be one of the best teams, but that doesn't guarantee anyone anymore a championship, because injury luck will go a long way. How a team is playing near the end of the season goes a long way. So, like, yes, Georgia might be the best team, but like in the NFL, the best team doesn't always necessarily win. I mean, look at the New York Giants against the New England Patriots. It just happens that way. And, I will say, though, now that, like, quarterback play is hugely instrumental. Like, if you look in the NFL with Patrick Mahomes, it's the reason why they're the best team, the Chiefs. And, like, I will say Carson Beck is probably top 3 best quarterback in the country. So he's definitely one of the better ones. But, I still think this team is going to struggle in certain games. They play Alabama on the road. I believe they play Texas on the road. Or I know they played Texas at least. I don't know if it's on the road. And so they've got some tough games, and we'll see how this season plays out. But I don't expect them to go through this season undefeated like in years past. Ian, your thoughts?
Yeah, if you want any stat to tell you how this game went, just look at the total yards. I remember seeing it at the end of the game. I think Georgia had almost 450, and Clemson didn't even have 200 for the whole game.
Yeah.
Georgia, as I called, just completely smothered Clemson, and there's nothing they can really do. One thing that showed me this week is the gap between the elite of the SEC and the ACC is getting wider and wider, because Clemson is one of the better teams in the ACC. And I remember saying Clemson might have a good shot winning the ACC, but only in the ACC.
Right.
Once they play out of conference these games, again, example, this Georgia game or the last time they played Georgia, they're just not built to win those games anymore.
Yeah.
You mentioned Klubnik when he was under pressure, or just in general, rolled out way too early, was a bit, too long in his passes, and they couldn't really get any run game going to help him out. So they had to rely totally on the pass game. And trying to get a run game against Georgia is trying to run through a brick wall pretty much. And it basically once it was, I know it was close in halftime, but once Georgia scored that first touchdown, I was thinking, okay, they're in rhythm. They can, really take a hold of this. And after that, they just, ran away with it. And it was clear as day, especially towards the end of the third quarter, who the better team was.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, I mean, it's very, honestly, it's very similar to the Florida Miami game with the stat totals, because Miami outgained Florida like almost like 3-1 or something, like whatever it was, or 3-2, or it's just something ridiculous, because it was like, Miami had like 500 yards of offense and Florida had like less than 200, and so like, or 5-2. So it's again, I've not been impressed with the offense since last year. I remember when they played Duke the first game of the year last year and how much they struggled. And in that game, it was largely because they were like not capitalizing on their red zone opportunities. But then it was like it just kept going, and like they struggled against FSU in certain aspects. And I was just like, this team, I don't know what it is. It's like, in years past, when like Clemson was like the top of the heap, they were able to move the ball like no other. Like they were one of the most effective offenses in the country. And it's been like 3 or 4 years now where the offense just looks dreadful, and they don't like strike fear into anybody. Like I know Georgia was not worried about this game at all. I don't think they probably even were concerned at all, thinking that they probably thought they were going to be able to hold them to a low totalage yardage, and they did. And the offense, Georgia did as much as they could to win this game, and they didn't even have to do that much, and they still dominated. Okay, let's move on. Next game. I actually love this game. I was very keeping up with it, because I was just like, what is going on with this? This is crazy. So Vanderbilt jumped up to a 17-0 lead on Vatek on Saturday, and Vatek came back and tied it. And then Vatek went up with like 4 minutes to go, 27-20, and it looked like Vandy was going to lose. And then Vandy ties it up, and then they got the ball back, and they had a chance to win in regulation, and they missed it. Yep. And I thought from there, I thought they were going to lose, because I was like, oh man, this is like setting up for one of those like ultimate like close but no cigar games. And they get in overtime, and Pavia, the quarterback for them, gets a touchdown in overtime, and then they get the stop on fourth down, and they win it. And it's just like, because Vatek, when we started the season, we talked about it, how they were like one of the potential surprise teams maybe of the ACC. And like, I don't think that's the case now, but maybe Vanderbilt might be a little bit better. I like their quarterback play. That kid played well and put them in position to win. And, he's obviously not like, I don't know. I mean, he only threw the ball 16 times, but he was efficient. He was 12 for 16, and he had 190 yards, and he had a ton of yards on the ground, 104. He had 3 total TDs. Who knows? I mean, maybe Vatek isn't as good, possible, and then maybe Vandy might sneak up on some people this year. It'd be interesting to see what happens, because, Vanderbilt had a somewhat decent year 2 years ago, and then last year really struggled. Clark Lee is a good coach, because he's a very good defensive coach, but he because he's an alum, it's more than likely he's not going anywhere, which is a good thing. But then it's also, I don't know how much you're going to get at him because it is Vanderbilt. Like they have had over the last 20 years, they would have like a class or two that would do well. And then like it would be that would be about it. But I don't know. I'm interested to see what happens with Vanderbilt. They don't have the athletes to really out athlete anybody, but Clark is a smart coach and maybe he can out coach a bunch of people. And who knows? Your thoughts before we move on.
Yeah, I would say that I think between the two, I think it was clear Vodtech did have the better team, especially with Drones. Although he went out towards the end of the game, he couldn't play in overtime, so that was a big deal. But Drones was really the leader for Vodtech. But
yeah,
one thing that Vandy did, and this is something Clark Lee preached about, is that what Vandy did is they snuck up and they jumped on Vodtech and they jumped on them early. They went up 17-0 in the second quarter. And after that, Vodtech started to wake up, get back into it. But Vandy did a good job not only keeping Vodtech at bay, but playing keep away. I think they had over almost 35 minutes of possession time, over 10 minutes more than Vodtech. And Vodtech can score. If you give them enough time, they will score. So Vandy knew very well, just keep on. They were very good at running the ball, especially with Pavia on, the option plays and draws. But Vandy did, I agree with you. I think they coached their way to a win. They did a really good job, making sure, playing keep away and coming up with the big play when it was needed. And they didn't let the situation get to them. When Vodtech took the lead or even like that missed field goal, Vandy seen in the past would kind of just like shake, shudder and be like, oh, here we go again. And they stood up to the challenge and they, took the bull by the horns.
Yeah, and the stats wise, it looks very even. It was like 21 first downs to 20, third downs relatively similar, total yardage like a 28-yard difference. More of a passing attack from Vodtech than Vanderbilt, who was on the used the ground attack more. But yeah, like you said, they kept the ball out of their hands. Which was smart considering that Vodtech looks like a team with drones can score. So if they were able to do what they did, they were, holding the ball and had the ball last, which almost won them the game, which they probably, if he made the field goal, it would have been the complete right strategy. And, but they win it in overtime and it's a huge win for them. And I'm glad because I kind of like Clark Lee. He seems like a solid guy. And considering, like I said, he's an alum. So, it's probably better off that Vanderbilt does better than just continues to forever be bad. Like, and maybe this is the way to do it. You get an alum who cares about the school, who wants to see them succeed. And it doesn't seem like he's going to leave. So it's like, oh, you have that coach, so you can invest in him and invest in the resources, which, the stadium is getting an upgrade and, hopefully the athletic facilities as well. So more power to them. Okay. Penn State, West Virginia. I think we were both wrong on this one. We both had West Virginia. West Virginia just had too many turnovers. Like they really could not hold on to the ball. And when they got blessed with one right in the beginning of the game, they got one right away from Penn State. And then they turned it right back over to to Penn State. And so then they had the ball on the 30. If they could have gotten points out of that, I don't know. It seemed like it got out of whack. The turnovers definitely hurt them immensely. Penn State's offense was better than I thought it was going to be. They were able to move the ball, but still not. I'm not super impressed with Alar. He's whatever. The Penn State ground game was really strong. Nick Singleton had a really good game. He's a stud. Their defense, Penn State's defense is really good. And I think that's the takeaway from this game is the fact that Penn State really came to play on defense. And, that might be their strong suit like it was last year. Because Alar is kind of like, at this point, he is who he is. He's not going to be any better than this. Like this is the like bar for him. He's not going to be a 300-yard passing total yards a game. He's going to be like 200 to 250 at most. He's going to be inaccurate and he'll throw some touchdowns, but he's not going to be. The good thing is he doesn't throw interceptions. He did have that fumble, but this West Virginia team, I still think they can compete in the Big 12. I don't think there's going to be a defense like this in the Big 12, so they got their toughest test out already, which is good. So their offense should be pretty strong the rest of the year. Garrett Green did not have a great game. They struggled in a lot of ways. They couldn't get things going. And, it's a shame because I was hoping that West Virginia was going to put a fight in this game, but they didn't at all. What do you think, Ian?
Yeah, at least with this one, you were right. Turnovers really killed West Virginia, and the defense really showed up for Penn State. I think they held West Virginia to under like 250. And that was West Virginia's main strength, was going to be their offense with their playmakers. But one thing that did make, at least for Alar, that I'm seeing now is that they are not totally relying on him. And I don't think with a quarterback like Alar, he's going to win the game by himself. But what you can do is make it easier for him. If you rely on the run game, you get good coverage. And there were a lot of, good running attack, opens the lanes up for the wide receivers. And there was a lot of one-on-one coverage that they singled out because of the run attack and high percentage passes, maybe 5-10-yard passes. And Alar excelled at that. So if Penn State can keep that going, they can really not be a lame duck offense anymore. But they do need to make sure the running game and offensive line stay intact and that they can find the one-on-one coverage when it does need to be time for, a big play down the field. Because you can't always rely on these little checkdowns or 5-yard plays. But all in all, Penn State's defense really shined here. They were really the MVP of the game, and they did a good job shutting down West Virginia.
Yeah, and it's definitely. I'm glad that there's matchups like this because the first week would be kind of boring if we didn't get games like West Virginia, Penn State, or Notre Dame, Texas A&M, or whatever. So I'm grateful that they did this. It stinks that West Virginia wasn't able to be competitive. But again, like I said, I feel like the rest of the year they should be fine. And I think I can see them winning at least 8 games, maybe even 9, and maybe even 10. Who knows? Okay. So on to, a game that I feel so stupid for saying that they were going to win. But you know what? I heard how many other people that thought Florida was going to win, so I don't feel as bad. But honestly, this game wasn't really close from the second quarter on. It was 17-10 at one point, but then Miami did the double up, which I honestly feel like that might be the most important feature of a game. If you're in a close game, if you're up by a score and you get the double up at the end of the half and then get the ball at the start of the second and you score, you go from up 1 score to going up 3 scores in the span of 5 minutes of clock time. That is right there. That is the biggest boss move you can ever do. And I was so pissed when I found out that Florida lost the toss and was receiving. And I was like, man, that means they're not going to get the double up chance. And I knew obviously the offense may not have been strong anyways, but that, because I remember the year that in 2020 with Dan Mullen, he used to do it all the time. Mm-hmm. Even if they won the toss, they would defer to the second half. And they just, they did the double up probably 5 or 6 times. And it just it puts games away. And once Miami was able to go up 3 scores, that game was over. There was no way that Florida was going to score more than 2 touchdowns. And that was it. And I will say the one thing that I noticed when I was rewatching stuff the last 2 days was that bad penalty that they had in the first drive that Miami scored the touchdown, because they were going to hold them to 3 points. If Miami gets 3 there, then Florida hit a field goal. It would have been 3-3. And then, Miami gets the field goal, 3 points instead of a touchdown. Then Florida got that interception. Instead of a field goal, they get a touchdown, which they were driving, but then just stalled, and they were close. If they could have gotten a touchdown, it would have been 7-3. And then, what is it? It would have been a different game, because it was like, if it was 7-3, then Miami scores that 1 touchdown. And then if Florida gets that, that Montrell Johnson run, that game is 14-10. The crowd would have been super into it at that point. It would have been completely different. Maybe they can end up getting them to stall there on that drive, and maybe they score. I don't know. It's crazy how it's like little things like that, like a penalty where it changes 4 points on the board, and then like not taking advantage of a turnover, which they finally get. They've been like trying to get turnovers forever, and they finally got one in this game, and it set them up immensely. Like, they were right there on the doorstep, and they should have scored a touchdown, and they didn't. But overall, stat wise, they didn't have a first down off a third down. They didn't convert a third down until I think the fourth quarter with DJ Lagway, once Mertz got hurt. And, it was never really close. Miami moved the ball at will. Cam Ward had all day. I mean, I counted several plays where he had 5 to 7 seconds to throw the ball. And that is just insanity, because you should have no more than 2 to 4 seconds as a quarterback to throw. If you have that much time, that means that the O-line is just dominating the opposing team's D-line, which they were. And, I will say that I did like the linebacking play from Florida. Shamar James and Pup Howard looked really good, but that was about it. The defensive backs looked lost. There was a play where Restrepo was wide open in the end zone because the safety didn't know where his responsibility was. There was, just countless stuff. Just it did wide open receivers, and Cam Ward looked amazing. And again, this might be a thing of playing Florida and you just look amazing because the defense is so bad. But, that was the thing we talked about coming in, and that's what I wrote my article about, was the defense had to be better, and they weren't. They struggled immensely, and, Florida paid for it because they weren't able to stop them. But I will say, I think if the offense had been able to convert some third downs and stay on the field, maybe the defense wouldn't have been as tired, and maybe they would have been able to make more stops. But I don't know if that necessarily is true, because they scored the majority of their points by 3 minutes into the second half. So they scored most of the points in the second quarter. I don't know. It's just, the offense struggled so much, and Graham Mertz just looked like dog crap. The play calling was just not inventive. They weren't getting open. The offensive line couldn't block. That was without Bain as well for Miami, who was out in the game. And I don't know. It's just, I don't know where you go from here. The large talk on Twitter and X is they're going to fire Billy and probably fire Scott Strickland. So, well, that's at least just the chatter. I don't know what's going to happen. It is the first game, so there's a lot to suss out the rest of the year, but it doesn't look good, and I don't know what to expect the rest of the year. Is the team going to come to play? They play an easy game on Saturday. They play Samford. They should easily win that game, but after that, they play Texas A&M, which looked pretty good against a really good Notre Dame team. Then they have Mississippi State, UCF, Kentucky, Tennessee, Georgia. So it's their schedule just escalates even harder and harder as the season goes on. So this was I will say this was a really good Miami team, probably better than I even thought. I thought they were really good, but I think they're probably a top 10, top 8 team right now. More than likely the best team in the ACC and more than likely a team that'll get in the playoffs. So um, just a tough loss, one of the worst losses ever in the history of Florida football. I think it's the worst season opening home opener that they've ever lost, the most points they've ever allowed in a home opener. Yeah, it's just terrible. Ian, what are your thoughts?
So this game, I should have mentioned in the preview, but this game very much was a test for Florida and for Billy Napier because you're facing Miami, who similar third-year head coach, has a bunch of guys in, and both coaches, maybe Chris Paul was not as much as on the hot seat as Napier, but both had something to prove in this game and this season. So this was a huge test for Florida, and boy, did they fail with flying colors. I remember, on the way, I was going to the USF game, and I was at that point barely watching because I knew what happened. And I remember telling George, I said, what changed? We heard all offseason from Napier, the coaches and everything, secondary is going to buckle down. We're going to limit mistakes. We're going to, do everything. We're going to be much more refined. Secondary was a sieve. Cam Ward had all the time in the world to find anybody open, and he did. Two brutal and stupid roughing the passer calls, which all you got to do as a linebacker on both of those calls just let up, run away from Cam Ward. Flop or not.
The second he releases it, even if you're lightly hitting him as you're coming to the side, it the refs will be like, oh, okay, he was attempting to get away from him, but they went into him fully, and it's come on, man, you got to
tell them let up because both of those roughing the passer calls resulted in touchdowns. Yeah. So there's another one, limit mistakes. There's two brutal ones right there that resulted in 14 points, and the offensive play was anemic. There was no urgency on any drive. Once we got into the end of the second quarter, it looked like they stopped caring. Yeah. And the only, and I'm not even going to say silver lining, for a copper lining was we got to see DJ Lagway a bit. I wish for better circumstances other than Mertz getting a concussion, but he did look as good as he could in that situation. So there's something. But
and that was against the first team defense of Miami. And so I know it was near the end of the game and they're probably easing up, but still he led the team down, had some nice passes, nice runs, and and the last drive he had, his arm got hit and it was a interception, so it was whatever, but I feel like what's going to happen going forward is okay, if they put Graham Mertz back in, and I love Graham and I'm appreciative of him, he's a great guy, but he's very limited with this offensive line. And it's not his fault. He's just not as athletic as you need to be with this kind of offensive line, because this offensive line is not good for pass protection. They're decent at running because they were able to run the ball. They had 139 yards, and it was you minus the 70 Montrell run, and they still had 70 yards on the ground. So that's not bad. They were decent on running the ball because, that was fine. It's just pass protection they're not very good at. And when you're an unathletic quarterback like Graham, it's a struggle. You're not going to be able to get out of the pocket. You're not going to be able to do many things. The RPO, there is no RPO with Graham. There's just not. It doesn't exist. But if you have someone like DJ, boom, that RPO becomes dangerous. Then it becomes not only do you elevate the passing game because you're able to get out of the pocket, then you're elevating the run game and you're making yourself so much more dangerous. And I think that honestly is where Billy's offense has struggled the last, year plus, is because he has been relying on Graham as the quarterback, and Graham is not athletic. And I don't think Billy's offense is really, predicated on just a drop back passer. I think he needs a more dynamic runner there to be able to do the things that he wants to do, because then it sets up the jet sweep motion stuff, because that is like, oh, he's going this way and then we're going to run that way. You know, it's like, that's where it ends up like misdirection all over the place. And you're getting these mismatches with linebackers that are out of position and all that. I just think with Graham, it kind of limits them right now. And I do really appreciate him for what he's done for Florida, but I really think I think it's time. And it's like Billy's on a time clock now. It's like, if he doesn't get to like 6 or 7 wins, he's more than likely fired. And so it's like, he has all the pressure now to win. And I think you saw that yesterday in their press conference on Monday, because we're filming today on Tuesday, but he was definitely obviously very like on edge, because he started going after Florida fans. And it's like, but look, if he's going to have a shot in any way of turning this thing around, I really think the legitimate thing is to put DJ out there and to play him. I know it's a tough schedule, but I would rather see him play and then them fail with that than go out with Graham and know it's not going to work. Because right now, Graham is not going to win more than 4 games. And, that's just the reality of it. And, to see them succeed, they're going to need a better, more mobile, athletic quarterback. And that's just what it is.
And I don't know. I know I texted you. I've said before the season I was done, and this just was like, I knew Florida, like I said, I expected Miami to win. Yeah. But make it competitive, show fight, show improvement. You had a whole off season talking about and preaching this, and they said from the beginning they were literally preparing 3 months for the Miami game. That's what 3 months does. Yeah. God help you with 1 week before Georgia.
Yeah.
That's all. I could go on another hour for that, but
I know. And I will let you know, folks that are tuning in for the first time, like the way our show works, we follow these teams, specifically the 4 teams of Florida, USF, UCLA, and USC. But we're not going to do hour-long in-depth shows about them, because we cover a lot of teams, because we cover a lot of the big games. So we try to do as much talk of the national sphere of college football. And we will talk about these teams, but we're not going to do like crazy in depth, because it just, I don't know. This is just what the show is. This is what we want to do. We want to be more of a broad stroke than a dialed in, focused on specific teams. Okay. So let's move on to a team that actually won.
Thank God.
USF and Bethune-Cookman. Did you go to the game?
Yes, I did. And
nice.
I want to say too, that was the USF faithful and that showed up. That was the best home opener I have been to since 2009. I think the attendance was 36,000. I remember seeing the crowd last year against Florida A&M, and it was much more sparse, but very full for the crowd. And another cool thing too, it actually felt like it felt like a college game. They had a bunch of walkways. They had the lights at Raymond James go green and yellow for a touchdown. They shot fireworks. I was like, oh, cool. It doesn't feel like they're playing in a pro stadium. It kind of has the feeling of a college game. So that was just a little tangent from my experience. I thought that was cool.
No, I'm glad you got to go, because it like gives us the perspective of, the brand being there. And so it's like, I'm excited, dude. I haven't been this excited about USF in a long time. And like, I was excited during Willie Taggart's run and, the year that they went like 10-1 and played UCF in that big game. But, this feels like there's something there, because it's like USF is on the verge of getting into a big conference. They're like 3 years away from on-campus stadium, was it 2027. And, if they can maintain this momentum, like the sky is the limit right now for this school. Like basketball is doing so well. I don't know if Alex Golish will end up staying, but just giving the school the opportunity to accelerate, to benefit from what is going on. It is amazing. You know, Byron Brown is a stud. His numbers weren't that great, but obviously Golish didn't put him in harm's way, which is exactly what he wanted to do because he wanted him ready for Alabama. You know, they dominated the game and they didn't even have to try. That run that Brown had on like one of the first plays of the game, like he none of those guys were even close. It was like he was in almost slow motion, or they were in slow motion while he's just like half speed. And that was scary because I'm like, dang, if he really wanted to put on the throttle, he would have like dusted them even worse. And I'm excited for next week. Are you going next week?
I am not, but George will be. He'll be in Tuscaloosa.
Okay, so I might hit him up because I'm going to go. So I'm going. You know, my sister lives in Mobile, so I'll be there. We'll talk about that more in the look ahead. But just exciting times with South Florida. It's crazy because it's like, you know, we've been doing this show for 9 years, and when, you know, the last couple years before last year, it was rough. You know, like talking about this team was very hard to talk about because they only won 4 games in a 3-year span, and it was just like, what is going to happen? Like, what is going on? And to be at this point now where, you know, they have the potential to maybe win the conference. It's definitely like up in the air. A lot of the other AAC teams didn't look that great this week, but South Florida looks great. And not only to maybe win the AAC, but then maybe get in the playoff it's remarkable. And I love it, and I'm excited, and I can't wait to be there Saturday to see everyone, and we'll talk about that more. So let's move on to Notre Dame and Texas A&M. You know, this game was pretty boring for the most part. It was like back and forth. It was 6-6, but then Notre Dame had that real long touchdown run, and they kind of like kept A&M at bay at that point. Riley Leonard kind of struggled, only 158 yards passing, but Jeremiah Love was huge in the game, and Jadarian Price had that run. So, like, you know, Connor Wegman, I don't know, man. I'm not sold. Like 12 for 30 for 100 yards and 2 interceptions is quite bad. But I will say Notre Dame has one of the best secondaries in the country, and their defense in totality is one of the stronger defenses. So I don't know. I don't know what to make of Texas A&M. It was a strong showing. They were in the game up until the very end because Notre Dame scored that late touchdown to put them over. But, you know, this is a huge win for Notre Dame. They don't have a schedule that really precludes much difficulty for the rest of the year. Texas A&M, you know, starting 0-1 with their new coach, not terrible because they can come back and win some games here and start to get back into conference play, not next week, but the week after that against Florida. So what are your thoughts, Ian, before we move on?
Yeah, just what I expected. I knew this game was going to be a slog and a mud fight, but I think Notre Dame just found a way to win out in this one. But they also forced the 2 turnovers, and that was really critical for Notre Dame winning in the end. And once it got into the fourth quarter, even with A&M tied it after that touchdown that, you know, kept that drive going forever, that was kind of what sealed the deal for the Irish.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on. We'll do this one real quick, and then we'll get the last 2, and then we'll get into the preview. Okay, so Michigan beats Fresno State 30-10. This game was a lot closer than the final score says because it was like 16-10 into the fourth quarter, and Fresno looked frisky. They definitely threw the ball quite a bit, and you know, had Michigan on their heels. They weren't able to convert many third downs, though, Fresno. So that was their biggest downfall. And but they had 335 yards passing, just no rushing, 9 yards rushing. And Michigan, honestly, man, 120 yards passing against Fresno State is not a good look. They moved the ball well on the ground, but outside the last couple of drives, they really didn't look good. I do not see this team as a contender. I highly doubt they get to the playoff, and I'm already picking now that they're going to lose to Texas next week. So what do you got, Ian?
Yeah, it was not the best showing in week 1 for them. They got to figure out whether it's going to be a Warren or Jerry at quarterback, because you can't. You got Texas next week, so you got to make a decision quick. But all in all, at least the defense was going to be the thing that was going to hold Michigan together. They at least showed up, but offensively, there's a lot of work to do. You do have a lot of new guys in. So like I mentioned with Florida State at the beginning of the year, if you don't have that consistency, that chemistry with your teammates as much as the other one, it gets very difficult. But
yeah,
not the prettiest win, and it's not going to get any easier for them.
Right. Okay, moving on. UCLA, Hawaii. So for whatever reason, this game, CBS Sports, whenever they have games on their network, they don't have like a traditional 20-minute recap highlight like ESPN does or CBS regular has. So I only had to watch like a 3 or 4 minute highlight of it, which sucks because I want to see more of the game to know in depth how that game went. But they were down 10-0 at halftime and were struggling. Garbers had 2 interceptions, one in as they're going into the end zone and one out of his own end zone. And, he really kind of hamstrung the Bruins there. But he did come back and have amazing throws to win this game and to really, keep them afloat because, if he didn't play as well as he did in the second half, they would not have won that game. And I did see quite a few people on Twitter saying to pull him. So, Garbers did his job and, I think he should stay the starter because he looks like he can have control of this offense. Yes, the 2 interceptions are rough, but the rest of the game, he looked really strong and made a difference in this game. It does not look good that UCLA's best runner was Garbers and only for 47 yards. So that is not good. That's not a good look considering they had been a strong running team for a long time. But now it seems like, who knows? Maybe they'll get that fixed. They have a bye week this week. So maybe they'll work on that, get some things going. Hawaii is not the strongest of teams. They're usually, a decent Mountain West team, but not that strong of a group of 5 team. But who knows? Maybe Hawaii will be better than we're even know. They kind of struggled last week to Delaware State. UCLA gets the win. That's all that matters. They're 1-0. They got a bye week, like I said, and then their schedule gets much more difficult. Your thoughts, Ian, before we move on?
Yeah, just one thing I'll mention is at least UCLA's defense has shown the consistency from last year. They were beat. I think Hawaii won the time of possession battle, but still being able to hold a team with 13 points is very impressive. UCLA offensively, Garbers has to find more consistency and not try to force as many balls. Maybe, more play action, option plays, just to give them more breathing room in the backfield.
Yeah. Okay. So UCLA, we'll see how the rest of the season goes, but a good start, 1-0 on the year so far. Okay. USC, LSU, great finish to this game. This was an amazing game. I hope as many people that watch this show watch this game because they had like 9 million viewers, which was a ton of people. So this is a great game to watch. It was back and forth. USC would score, then LSU would score, and then USC would score. And it was like just really tight all the way through. LSU had a lead 17-13 into the fourth quarter, and then USC just put it on and, had a tremendous fourth quarter. Miller Moss, I'm telling you, man, right now, the kid is unflappable. He looked amazing back there. He made so many plays. He's got great touch. He's not super tall, but he can make plays, and like he is definitely right now a possible Heisman candidate, especially with a performance like that against a really good LSU team. Just a tremendous game. Hudson with those amazing catches, the one-handed one, and then was a one-handed one as well, but he got popped in the head. That one where he got popped in the head was huge because not only did he catch that and they were in field goal range, but then the targeting puts them 15 yards further, and then they score the touchdown. And it's just like, man, this kid came up huge for them. Zachariah Branch is a stud, like I said. Woody Marks, huge game for him, 2 TDs. And like I said, Miller Moss, 378, 27 of 36. I mean, this kid is the real deal. And it wasn't like LSU didn't play strong. They played strong. The USC defense, I will say, their tackling is way better, like night and day difference. I think LSU could have had a lot of big plays if they didn't get tackled so quickly. Like in years past, USC might have missed some of those tackles, but no, they were sure-handed with their tackles and they kept them in check. And, just a great team win. They stopped them on that 4th down early in the game, and that was a huge play for them. Was in their red zone right at a goal-to-go situation. So, this USC team, I know a lot of people were not talking about being one of the stronger teams in the Big Ten and not even a playoff team, but I'm telling you right now, they're right there in the lead for the Big Ten, and they potentially, I think even if they don't win the Big Ten or like challenge for it, I think they're still going to get in the playoff. And I just like what I see. Lincoln Riley is amazing with his offensive mind, and the defense is going to match. And it's a match made in heaven. So like, let's see where this goes. Ian, your thoughts?
Yeah, all around, this was a great game. This is one of those games where it's a shame somebody had to lose.
Yeah.
But really the difference was Miller Moss and his ball placement in the game. They were able to – he could really just pop it anywhere he wanted to. And when you have as good as wide receivers as they do on offense for USC, it's a lot easier. The one thing, too, as you mentioned, USC's defense really did step up, especially when it was in the 4th quarter. USC was up 20-17, and LSU was in the red zone. They were like under the 15-yard line, and they were able to force a field goal. That was huge because they score a touchdown there. It's a completely different way of how you're, setting up that drive when you get the ball back. So USC's defense definitely came up when it needed to. They did give up over the 400 yards. So that is something that needs to, be locked down, especially through the air. But all in all, when it came down to it, they made the plays when they had to. And USC could be said for them as well. They made the plays that they had to. They were able to, make the big plays. And again, Miller Moss, another fantastic performance. He just continuing off from that Holiday Bowl performance.
Yeah. So huge start for them, getting a huge win against a very good opponent. And, the rest of the season sets up very well for them. They have a lot of big time games coming up, Michigan and Wisconsin and Penn State. So look out for this USC team. I'm telling you right now, they're going to be one of those teams to contend out there, especially because the offense is solid, very solid. Okay. Last game of the week. I'm not going to make fun of them too much because it's looking kind of pathetic and may even look more pathetic than Florida. So Florida State loses to Boston College 28-13 last night. Just a very sad sack, sorry game. Boston College goes up 14-0 and never looked back. And Florida State just a very sad team. And it's, DJ Ungalele, he's not good, man. He's just really not. 21 of 42, a TD and an interception. They ran the ball for 21 yards against Boston College. Like, what is going on? Like, I don't know. I knew that Boston College was going to be a solid team against them. I knew that they were going to be a threat because Castellanos, was elusive last year. and he didn't even have that big of a game. He just was like, he did the things to move the ball, and their rushing attack, besides Castellanos, he did well. The rest of them did it remarkably well. There was 2 running backs that went over 75 yards on the ground. Like, they were moving the ball at will. Ungalele had that very bad interception that set them up for a short touchdown. That once they scored that, I think the score was 21-6. Like, that, the game was basically over at that point. Like, I had like no thought in my mind where I thought that Florida State was going to come back in that game. And they tried, but it was never a real attempt, and just they just never could get things going. The funny thing is, like, the stadium is like 75% of what it normally is because the construction,
the renovating,
and so like it even felt like that. Like, the energy was not there, and so like maybe that like had an effect on the team. I don't know. Who knows? Who knows? Because like not all those guys were there last year because they lost a lot of guys. But still, felt like there was no energy with this team. DJ he's just not a good quarterback. And, going forward, I don't envision them winning more than like 6 or 7 games. Like, I'm moving the win total down and down every week. I might be down to like 3 wins by the next month, because I don't think they're going to beat Memphis. I really think they're going to lose that game. But Ian, your thoughts before we move on to the preview?
Yeah, just a few things. Is one was the amount of 3 and outs there were when Florida State had to respond after giving up a big touchdown or a field goal or anything to Boston College. The other thing was too is that with those 3 and outs, Boston College, they had a 9-minute drive that was for a touchdown. I think they held the ball for almost 40 minutes. You have to take every drive seriously, and nobody, quarterback, O-line, Norvell, anybody took any drive they had with any urgency that entire game. And it was very shades of last week with Georgia Tech. They just like slept walking in this game. And I thought that it was going to be corrected, that you would be able to be like, look, we got bit in the butt against Georgia Tech. We were going in expecting to win, and we didn't. You can't do that again 2 weeks in a row. And they did. And yeah. I was just amazed. Also, too, the other one was on defense. Castellanos, it was a play action boot quarterback run. They ran that play 4 times. I counted 4 times, and 4 times it went for over 15 yards. Now, one defensive adjustment. It was one of the, and this is saying something. I haven't seen Florida State play and coach that bad since Willie Taggart was there in 2018. Yeah. It was beyond like unacceptable. I was like, if you're gonna look, if BC was gonna pull the upset, that's fine. Not fine, but you can't have them dominate you like that. And that's what it was. It looked like the script was flipped. It looked like BC was the one that was the preseason favorite, and Florida State was just happy to be there.
Yeah, that definitely is what it felt like, because BC controlled that game from beginning to the end, and FSU, like you said, was not converting on those third downs, and they had so many 3 and outs, especially in the beginning, that they should have tried to answer. And if they did answer, it would have been a different game, but they just were never, ever close in that game. And it's crazy to think how bad they were. And it's honestly, it doesn't look good for the rest of the year, like we said. Okay, let's switch now to the look ahead to the preview for this week. We've got, Thursday, BYU SMU. Now, SMU comes off that week 0 Nevada game where they had to survive to win. I don't know what to expect from this BYU team. This should be a good game, honestly, regardless. I think that Gary Bohannon was like in the running to be the BYU quarterback, starting quarterback, but I don't know for sure. Who's the quarterback for BYU? Do you know?
It was I think it was Retzlaff or Stone. I think they split.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry. Retzlaff. Stone is the SMU quarterback. It's Retzlaff.
Okay. So, I mean, I'm going to go with SMU in this one just because I feel like they're a stronger team. It's in Dallas, so they'll have the home crowd, which is not very much, but at least it's something compared to a away game. I think SMU wins like I'm going to say, I don't know, 31 to like 27. It'll be close. What do you got?
I'm gonna go. I agree. I think it's gonna be close. I think SMU pulls the one out because SMU has Smith at running back as well as Stone at quarterback. They had two pretty good. Both of them had pretty good games, so there'll be more balance and keep BYU off back on their toes defensively. So I'm gonna go with SMU, but I think it's gonna be close. I'll go 27-22 Mustangs.
Arkansas, Oklahoma State. What do you got?
Oh, all right. I didn't know who was going first. I think OK State, Bowman, he's the veteran, Ollie Gordon, didn't have the biggest game. He did have over 100 yards last week, but I think OK State's attack will be able to play keep away with Arkansas. So I'm going to go OK State winning. I'll go with a 28-20 win, but I do think Arkansas State makes it closer than the Oklahoma State would like.
Yeah, so Arkansas, I'm intrigued to see if they're able to continue that hot streak from this first week because they looked pretty good on offense, but again, it was against a lesser team. So Oklahoma State is definitely one of the better teams in the Big 12. I think Oklahoma State wins this one. I'm going to say Oklahoma State wins like 24 to like, I'd say 17. Okay, next game. Texas, Michigan. I'm intrigued by this game because this is kind of like Texas's moment to be like, we truly belong. We could have beaten this team last year if we played them. We couldn't beat Washington. We barely lost to Washington. We deserve to be in the national championship game. And I love that for them because it's like a real opportunity to like show out. And this Texas team, I'm a huge fan of Quinn Ewers. I've always been. I thought he's been tremendous throughout his time at Texas. I feel like he's going to have a huge day. If the Fresno State quarterback can have a huge day against Michigan, Quinn Ewers is going to have a huge day. And so the good thing about Texas is, yeah, they've lost two of their running backs, but they have a ton of talent on that team. And I still think they're going to be able to run the ball as well. I don't think this Michigan team is going to do as much. They struggled to pass the ball last week against Fresno State. I feel like Texas is going to win this one. I say Texas wins like 35 to like, let's say like 17. What do you got, Ian?
Yeah, I would say I think Texas will pull out in this one. I think Michigan's defense, though, does kind of try to confuse yours as much as possible. And it is on the road in the big house. But I feel like what we saw last year with Alabama, Texas has a template of how you can beat these big teams on the road. So I think Texas will do that again. I don't think Michigan's offense is going to be able to keep up with Texas. It's really going to come down to how well the defense on Michigan can handle Texas. But I'm going to go Longhorns. I'll go, let's do 28-21.
Kansas State, Tulane. Who you got?
I'm calling it. K-State wins, but by a field goal. I think Tulane maybe sneaks up on them a little bit, but I'm going to take the Wildcats winning. I'll go 24-21.
Yeah, I like Kansas State in this too. I think Tulane, yeah, It's in New Orleans, but I'm gonna say like 27 to like 20, close one. Cal Berkeley going up against Auburn. They played this game last year, and Auburn traveled all the way out to Berkeley. Now it's the returning game in Auburn. I think Auburn wins this game because Cal is like an okay ACC team. But I think
God, it's
this
weird saying
Auburn.
that.
What?
God, it's weird saying that.
Yeah, I know it is. But I think this Auburn team is strong. I'm not the biggest Peyton Thorne fan. I think he's like kind of average, but the team around him is better than what Cal has. So I think Auburn's going to win probably like 22 to like, I don't know, say like 20. What do you got, Ian?
Yeah, I think Auburn wins this one, and they probably win by a couple possessions. Cal really didn't look the best against UC Davis. They were losing at one point towards the end of the second quarter. But I think Auburn is just the better team. So I'm going to go Auburn winning probably by a lot. I'll go with 38-17 win for the Tigers.
Yeah, but you remember last year how close this game was.
It was, but I feel like with it between the hedges and the fact that I think even UC Davis outgained Cal, Auburn's offense is way better than that. And I don't think Cal's defense can keep up.
Yeah. Okay. Iowa State, Iowa. This is an interesting game because Iowa looked better on offense, but again, it was a terrible team. So how much can you really take from that? This Iowa State team has been on the verge of being one of the better teams in the Big 12 for the last like 5 or 6 years when Brock Purdy was there. This game is always tough because it's a rivalry game. It's in Iowa, where's Iowa's
Stadium?
Yeah, where is their what city?
It's Iowa City, Kinnick Stadium.
It's Iowa City for Iowa? Yes. And then Iowa State is Ames, right?
I believe so.
Okay, so Iowa, whatever. It's at University of Iowa. I think that'll be enough for them because their defense is very good. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I'm going to say like 14-17 Iowa wins, low scoring. What do you got?
Yeah, the only thing I'll say is with Iowa, their defense is going to have to shell out and win again. The last time they scored more than 20 points against a Power 5 team was Michigan State last year, and they won, I think, 26 something. Mm-hmm. So, and I know they only scored 20 against Iowa State. Iowa State, if they can get more than 20 points, I think they win it. You know what? I think they pull it off. I think Iowa State goes into Kinnick Stadium, and I think they pull off the win. I think they find a way to outlast that Iowa defense. I'm going to go Cyclones winning 27-19. 24-19. 27 is a bit much.
Yes. Baylor, Utah. Interesting game because this was a non-conference game last year, and this year they're in the same conference. So Baylor in Salt Lake City with Cam Rising back at Utah. I think Utah is going under the radar right now because last year they lost Cam Rising for the year, so they weren't able to really capitalize on how good their defense was. And this time now they have Cam Rising. I think people kind of like have forgotten Utah because they also switched conferences. But I think this Utah team, if they really take it to like a team like Baylor, I think that really starts the campaign off and like gets them up and running. I'm going to say Utah wins I'm going to say 30 to 19. What do you got?
Yeah, as we mentioned last year with Utah, their home field advantage is insane. They lost last year against did they lose at home last year? Actually,
It was Arizona, I think.
It was I thought Arizona was on the. They lost to Oregon. That's who it was. They lost to Oregon at home.
Yeah.
Before that, they had not lost a home game with a full capacity crowd because of 2020. They had not lost a home game with a crowd since 2018. So I think with that, Utah, with the home field advantage, with the experience of Cam Rising, I think they win and they pull away late. I'm gonna go with the Utes winning. I'm gonna go let's say 35-20.
Okay, I'm gonna let you do this one, then I'll give my prediction. UTSA, Texas State. Who you got?
I'm gonna go. This couldn't kind of be an up in the air one because both quarterbacks played really good opening week. But I'm gonna go UTSA based on their attack. And Texas State usually not the best against tougher teams. They did only win by 1 touchdown last week. So defensively not as strong. Even then, UTSA didn't look too good against Kansas State. So you can really flip a coin on this one, but I'm going to go with the Roadrunners winning. I think it'll be a shootout. I'll go 38-34 UTSA.
Yeah, I'm not far off from you. I got a 34-30 UTSA. Okay. The game we want to talk about the most this week, our beloved USF Bulls going up against Big Bad Bama in Tuscaloosa. I'm going to be there. I'm super excited about this. If you are USF fans, please come find me. I'll either be wearing USF shirts or my Hater Radio gear. I'm going to do some filming, so I'll be around with my camera, trying to get some coverage, some B-roll stuff, just of random fans hanging out, whatever. But I went to the game in Auburn in 2007 when USF started ascending the ranks of college football. And to be there at that game was such a huge, important moment in the program's trajectory and history. And to now coming back to the state of Alabama for another game, eerily similar to that, 17 years later, I'm so glad I can be a part of it. I'm excited to see what happens. This team has so much more in front of them than they realize. I think they do realize, but there's a lot of potential with this team. Byron Brown is, right now being projected as a decent, second, maybe third round pick, and he can maybe even higher by the end of the year. And I'm so excited for this team. This offense is so fun to watch. They can constantly score. They move the ball. This is a huge test. Alabama is one of the best defenses in the country year in, year out. Kellen DeBoer taking over for Nick Saban is a huge change, but DeBoer has been proven to be a very strong coach. He did well at Fresno State. He did amazing at Washington and got the most out of his players at both schools. I feel like, this USF team is prime and ready. They're going to be able to put, a huge performance in here. The defense has to come to play. If anything out of this game, USF's defense has to be strong, which they could be. Jalen Milroe at times can struggle with his accuracy. So if they can force Bama to 3 and outs or force them to punt, there's a chance that USF can stay in this game. They struggled offensively last year against Alabama. So maybe that was just the first couple of games of the year, and that's why they were struggling. But I feel like they can score in this game. I feel like USF can put up 24 to 28 points, but I feel like Bama might be able to score more because of Alabama's offense and USF's defense's struggles. I think Alabama scores 30 to 34. So I'm going to say USF loses, but Alabama scores 30, and USF scores like 24, so 30-24.
Yeah, and I agree. I think with this one, USF's definitely had this circled around their calendar. And Alabama, it's going to be a big game. They're going to be dedicating. It's going to be called, Nick Saban Field at Bryant-Denny Stadium. So there's going to be a lot of emotions in the air. USF, if they want any chance of defense, has to step up. They did a good job wrapping up everybody not having as many broken tackles last week, but it is a huge difference between Bethune-Cookman and Alabama. So they need to just keep everything in front of them and do what you can. Don't get burned on the big plays. They want any chance in this one. I do think with Byron Brown, they weren't opening the playbook as much last week. Now is the time to do it. Maybe more read options. Sean Atkins, he had a couple drops. He needs to make bigger catches, especially when they matter. And definitely with Schuler, he went down after the interception. I don't know what the status is of him. He is the best linebacker of that team. So that would be really big. All in all, for me, the last time they went to Tuscaloosa was, I think, 2003, and they lost 40-17. If you can make that score a little smaller than it was in 2003, we're on to something. I think in the end, USF, they do the best they can, but all in all, Bama just does have the better team. I think they're going to play keep away because they know South Florida's strength is their offense and that hurry-up attack. So I think USF will get points on the board, but Alabama will know how to, keep distance. I'll go with a 35-14 win for Bama. I know that sounds like a lot, but I think like towards the end, Bama just, puts it on ice in the fourth quarter.
Okay. Samford, Florida. The only thing I'm really looking forward to this game is how DJ Lagway does, and that's all I really care about because they should win. They should win pretty comfortably. They should win probably like 50 to like, I don't know, 20, something like that. But yeah, like I said, I just want to see DJ Lagway and see how he does and see what he can do offensively when he has a full game. Hopefully he starts and gets to play the whole game, and maybe will be the impetus to make the change for the Texas A&M game. But we'll see. What do you got, Ian?
Well, as I mentioned, the last time we said Samford was an easy win was 2021. We know how that happened, 70-52. I think Florida. God, what are you? Yeah, DJ is like the only thing I'm looking forward to in this one, man. Yeah. I hope he can really show the potential he has, and maybe he'll provide a spark and give us more optimism for the coming season. If he plays that good, maybe they make a switch. What I want to see is defensively. Just keep with the secondary, keep the guys in front of you, stop biting on play action, and just, cover your men is going to be crucial. I know it's against Samford and all that, but you gotta, you have to play up to everybody you play. So I'm going to go Florida winning. I'm going to go with a 38-14 win for the Gators. And hopefully this time Samford doesn't drop 50 on us. So we'll see.
Okay. Kansas, Illinois.
So I'm going to go with Kansas in this one, but I'm going to go much closer because Illinois' defense is pretty strong. But I think Kansas, all in all, this might be a game where they just out-athlete Illinois. So I'm going to go with the Jayhawks winning in a close one because I think Illinois will put the scare on them. They usually have a knack for that. So I'm going to go Jayhawks winning 27-21.
Yeah, I think Kansas is going to probably put it to them a little. I don't like this Illinois offense that much. Their defense is strong, but I think this Kansas offense is one of the better ones in the country. And I'm going to say, especially with Jalen Daniels. So I'm going to say 32-17 Kansas. Tennessee, NC State. This is a very interesting game because Tennessee is starting to get some love with Nico. And can he take off against a strong opponent? I know they had a very weak opponent the first week, but this is a very formidable foe. even though NC State didn't look that great against Western Carolina. I think Tennessee wins this one. I'm going to go Tennessee winning I'm going to say 28-20. What do you got, Ian?
I'm going to go, I think Tennessee wins. And again, I think they win just based on having the better players, but I think it's going to come down to maybe the last possession, because the attack of Waters and our boy Grayson McCall going to NC State is going to be, he's been in those situations before. He'll really put the scare on Tennessee. This would be a game, though, I think Tennessee wins, but this is one of those games where I would not be surprised if NC State pulls off the upset, because it's in where the Carolina Panthers play. It's not in
Charlotte Coliseum or whatever.
Yeah, it's
Bank of America.
Yeah, the ACC championship game.
Yeah,
area. So it's not going to be in Neyland Stadium. If it was at Neyland Stadium, I would take Tennessee winning by a long shot. But I think this one a bit closer. I'll go NC State winning, or I'm sorry, Tennessee winning. I'll go with a 31-27 win for the Volunteers, but that score could easily flip.
Okay. Colorado, Nebraska. I want to hear your thoughts, and then I'll tell you mine.
Yeah, this one is it's interesting because Nebraska was a victim of one, Matt Rule trying to implement a system last year, and Colorado just riding that wave after the TCU game. I think Nebraska, though, Raiola did have a pretty good game on his first game. Nothing too crazy, but it didn't have to be. I think he had over 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. And defensively, I think Nebraska is going to be much tougher than Colorado has faced. What it comes down to is if you can limit the playmaker, if you can limit Hunter, Horn, and Sanders, and you can implement your linebackers as spies to keep Sanders in the pocket, Nebraska could have their way with them. I think Nebraska, I'm going to take Nebraska winning, but I think Colorado puts a lot of points up early, but Nebraska finds a way to adjust and win it. I'm going to go with a 31-28 win for Nebraska. I think it's going to be close, actually.
See, I feel like Nebraska is going to control this game from beginning to end, and I think this is going to be Nebraska and Dylan Raiola's coming out party. And, and it does give me some hope, because if Raiola can start as a freshman, there's no reason why DJ Lagway can't start as well, because DJ is, he's very talented as well and should be starting. So, I feel like this Nebraska team, the defense has gotten stronger because of Matt Rule the last couple of years. They had a lot of one-score games last year that they weren't able to take advantage of, and they lost them. So they were about a 500 team, I think they were. But I think they're better this year. I think they have a chance to get to 7-0 to start the year, which would be tremendous. Then they'll have some tough games at the back half of the schedule. But I think they win this one 34-20. And I think they're going to hold Colorado in check most of the game. Okay, Houston, Oklahoma. I don't know how good Houston is. I actually haven't been following them since Dana Holgorsen got fired. So,
well, they got blown out by UNLV last week, so that should tell you.
Yeah, so I feel like Oklahoma should run over them. So I'm going to say Oklahoma wins 42 to 17. What do you got?
Yeah, I think Oklahoma it's their Houston's just down right now. And I think Oklahoma takes advantage, and it's in Norman. So I'm going to go Oklahoma winning. I'll go 38-10 Sooners.
Nice. Okay. App State, Clemson. What do you got?
Oh man, this would be the funniest thing ever. We know App State's history with these games. They've upset Michigan, obviously. They have upset Texas A&M a few years ago. They are always a team you cannot look too far ahead of, and they almost upset Carolina a couple years ago. Aguilar had a fantastic game against East Tennessee State. I think he had almost 400 yards. But I think Clemson, I think App State maybe puts a scare in them in the first half, but Clemson will find a way to win out. I'm going to go with a 34-17 win for the Tigers, but App State makes it close in the first half.
Yeah, I don't know anything about this App State team, and I'm glad that you are as it tapped into the G5 teams as you are, because it gives us a better perspective. I think App State probably can score a little bit, but I'm going to say Clemson probably is a get-right game for them to prepare them for ACC play. I'm going to say Clemson wins like 28 to like 10. Okay, last couple here. Boise State going up against Oregon. This is an interesting game because Oregon looked very pedestrian last week against Idaho. I think more of the same. Maybe Oregon struggles again. I'm going to say Boise State keeps it close. I'm going to say like a 24 to like 18 game. That's what I got. 24-18.
I think the difference though in this one is that Oregon, we know Dylan Gabriel, he willed that win. I think he went 41 for 49. He had an insane stat line last game against Idaho. And I think with the running attack that would help. Boise State's defense was very, very weak last week against Georgia Southern. I think they gave up 45 points. I think Oregon scores a lot. I think Boise State maybe keeps up with them a bit, but I think Oregon runs away with it, actually. I'm going to go with a 45-20 win for the Ducks.
45-20?
Yeah, because I just don't see Boise State. If they gave up 45 to Georgia Southern, and we know how good Oregon's offense can be.
Okay, 41-49. That's crazy. Strange game. Texas Tech going up against Washington State. One of the only two teams left in the Pac-12. I like this Texas Tech team. They've been a little frisky last 2 years, so I'm going to say Texas Tech wins like 31 to like 20. What do you got, Ian?
I'm going to go, well, I think actually Washington State will get the win here. Because Tech had to go to overtime last week. It was against I think Abilene Christian, I think was who it was.
Oh, that's not good. I didn't realize it.
Yeah, it was not a good look. It was a shootout. I think it was like 52 something. Morton had a great game. He had 5 touchdowns. And the running attack was really good. But I think Washington State will find a way. They did a good job. I think it'll be a shootout. And I think Washington State does a good job of limiting Tech's playmakers and clutters the line. So I'm going to go Cougars winning. I'll go with another shootout. I'll go 40-30.
Okay. Last game we got. One of the teams we cover. Utah State, USC in the Coliseum here in LA. I don't envision this game being close. I think USC scores a ton. I think they score like 56. Utah State may score a little, but not very much. I'm going to say like 14 to 56. And it's going to be one of those games where they get to play a lot of their younger guys, which is good. Get them some reps. Their schedule just gets harder the more they go into the season. So it's good to have a game like this because, LSU and then Utah State are their 2 non-conference in the beginning. And then the other non-conference game they have is Notre Dame. So the rest of their schedule is Big Ten. It starts next week. So it's going to get tougher. So this is a game for them to get right, get some rest, and get ready for the rest of the Big Ten schedule. What do you got, Ian?
I think SC just, runs away with it. Miller Moss, he did very good against LSU. I don't expect that to change against Utah State. I'm going to go SC winning. I'll go with a 42-14 win for the Trojans.
Okay, that is the week 2 preview. And we did the week 1 recap. So it was the monster show we did. We're going to go ahead and go to the normal schedule starting Sunday. So Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, we'll do the recap. Wednesday will be the preview, and same time as well on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, X Live. It'll be on Instagram as well. So for Twitter, X, Instagram, and TikTok, it is at hater_radio. For YouTube, it is at hater radio. For Facebook, it is hater radio CFB. Ian, what are your socials before we go?
Yeah, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter are at GGatorG.
Okay, that's the show. Thank you for watching. We'll see you guys on next Sunday. Enjoy these games. There's a lot of really good ones. Obviously, we went through who we thought we were going to win. Have fun this weekend, and we'll talk to you on Sunday. All right, take care.